Hey everyone, it's Solvi. Today we are going to be drawing Percy Jackson and Annabeth Chase from the new Percy Jackson series on Disney+. Now, normally I start these speed paints with the sketch already completed, but I figured this time I would show you a little bit more of my sketching process. I often find that it helps me complete a sketch if I block in the flat colors and shapes first before adding the fine details of a sketch. So I started with a really quick line sketch, then added flat colors to give the drawing some mass, before then moving on to actually fine-tune the sketch. I don't always work this way, it kind of just depends on the drawing and how I'm feeling, but it is a useful alternative if you find that the traditional sketching process isn't really working for you. I also wanted to say that I'm using Procreate's reference feature for this drawing. You can basically add in an image as a reference so it's floating around on your screen, but as you can see, it doesn't show up in the time-lapse. I'm referencing an image of both of the actors. I'm still stylizing the drawing, but I wanted them to be recognizable. Now, I'll be perfectly honest with you, I've only seen the first 2 episodes of this show, but Percy Jackson was my favorite book series as a kid, so it's been really sweet seeing this show sort of bring it to life. And I was obsessed with the way that Camp Half-Blood looked. I really loved the campers in their armor and t-shirts. It looked just how I imagined it when I was a kid. So, of course, I had to draw Percy and Annabeth in their Capture the Flag outfits. You can see that at this point in the drawing, I'm really focusing on their faces. A lot of the times I feel like I can't progress to the rest of a drawing before I really nail down the faces. Unless, of course, I'm procrastinating drawing the other eye, in which case I absolutely will go and add detail on armor and other various things. But now that the faces are completed, you can see that I'm moving my way down towards the rest of their bodies, working a little bit on Percy's hand. And it's crazy how much a quick, dark outline can really help sharpen the whole thing. The one downside of this form of sketching, adding flat colors, is that it does tend to be a little bit looser and messier, and it makes the cleanup process a little bit more painful. Like, Annabeth's hand right now is truly just a blob, there's no definition in there at all. So that's something that I will have to go back and add in the details so that I can actually render it later. On the other side though, I wanted this piece to have a loose, painterly feel, I wanted it to have texture, and I really wanted it to feel like a warm summer afternoon or something. Speaking of texture, part of the way that I've achieved that is I've overlaid a photograph of an actual physical acrylic painting that I did. Then I've just pumped up the contrast and set the layer mode to overlay, and you can see that it gives the painting a really subtle canvas texture, again as though it were a real physical painting. Obviously the piece overall still looks pretty digital, but it's nice to have that sort of texture to break up the very digital airbrush look. Or at least that's what I was going for this time. You can see that I'm finally adding in the texture on Annabeth's hair. I went back and forth on this for a little while, but I ultimately decided to use a braid brush. One of the great things about Procreate is that you can download brushes very easily, and a braid brush made the process of rendering her hair much quicker, and it gave a good textured look like I was going for. I think that the main thing to keep in mind if you're using brushes like that is just to try to fully incorporate it into your art style. You don't want it to look like something that you slapped on top of your drawing, you know? I also ended up using a lot of leaf and foliage brushes for this piece. You can see that I'm starting to do that now. I blocked in the tree and the initial foliage with just my regular rectangle brush, but then to add detail and texture, I went back in with some specific, like, greenery brushes. Another cool thing you can do with that is you can see in the left side, I've actually used the leaf brush, but in the color of the sky blue background, so that it creates these sort of little negative spaces in the bushes, and I really like the way that looks. You can see that I'm pumping up the lighting a little bit more, and for that I'm just using a yellow airbrush set on an overlay layer. What can I say? I love an overlay layer. And I think that really pushing that warm lighting at the end helps tie the piece together. Getting to the end here, finishing up some last patches. Percy's jeans are still unfinished. Sometimes I find it really challenging to push through a drawing when I get to this stage, since I've finished the fun parts and all, but I'm really glad that I did. Last touches on his sword, and they're done. Thank you so much for watching this video. I hope you enjoyed it, and I hope you stick around to see some more.